Hello everyone, I guess you know, hopefully you're having a wonderful day, and today we are here with another PWCC Weekly Review where I go through the top 100 soccer items auctioned off this week. As always, if you enjoyed the video, do make sure to leave a like, I'd appreciate it greatly, but with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So as we do, starting from the bottom and going upward, we start with a 2021-22 Donruss/Optic PSA 10 Pink Velocity Jude Bellingham for 144. We then have a PSA 10 from the Icons Messi set here, going for 144 as well, along with this 54 Nilton Santos PSA 1. We've been seeing some of the 54s from this set, along with the Federicao as well. Just some odd ends, and this one seemed to have gotten a decent price. Most of the time they're doing between 100 and 200, depending on the player. Maybe Didi sort of gets up to like 300-400 in that range, but for the most part, the other stars, I guess you could say semi-stars because there's so many stars, but still stars within the set are going for about this price. From what I can tell, the caricatures don't come up that often in 54, so fun to see. This was my win. It's not the typical win I have, but I do sort of have this thing going on my PC where I am trying to get autographs of the top 100 players, typically on-card autographs. Of course, in this case with Puskás, it's going to be pretty hard to get an on-card autograph, so, I had to go ahead and settle. I thought 150 wasn't that crazy considering, people pay 150 for, most modern prospect guys, and I also like the Puskás auto as well. It's a little hard to see here because it kind of goes into his tummy there, which is, poking out a little bit in these days, but I thought it was pretty cool. It's blank back, just a photo, but I was pretty happy to add it. It knocks off one of the bigger ticket autographs in the whole set that I'm going for. We have a Thomas Muller blue treble going for 150. Again, not a huge treble guy, but I don't think that this is a crazy price for a treble relative to what I see other ones go for. Obviously, am I chasing it? Of course not, but at the same time, comparatively, I think Thomas Muller just in general is a little bit undervalued, but you could say that for a lot of people in soccer, to be honest. Martinelli out at 10, impeccable rookie medal here. Above that, we have a 2005 Cristiano Ronaldo's Champions of Europe going for 156 in a PSA 10. I like this sticker, at least in terms of the look. Manchester United days, you got the young CR7 there. Another Ronaldo right next to him with this PSA 1 El Mundo Deportivo. This goes for 156, which doesn't feel crazy. For a PSA 1, feels fair. There is, I think, a couple more in this auction, and then there's going to be a few next week. So there's a lot of Mundo Deportivos going on auction lately, which is interesting. People are speculating as to why. I don't quite know, but, there are different theories you could come up with. We have a 62 Verlag Pele, pretty nice trophy there from the World Cup win. Above that, we see this 2018 Panini Kylian Mbappe PSA 10 sell for 162. I'm not going to look it up, but I do think I saw this sell for like the first time almost ever, at least from my point of view. I don't really look this type of stuff up, but I saw it in an auction block just a few weeks ago. Now we're seeing it again. So presumably got relisted, but I do not know that. Just going to throw it out there. 2015 Lionel Messi red ball from Donruss PSA 8 goes for 162. Generally, I like the design of the 2015 Donruss set, but the parallels don't necessarily stick out to me, like the red ball, green ball, blue ball. I don't think that last one's real, but there's a gold as well, which is pretty good. But nonetheless, we have a 2000 DS Inter Ronaldo PSA 10 going for 162. This will be the first one we look up, which is the 78 Bergman Verlag SGC 5 of Hugo Sanchez. So this one, what are we looking at here? PSA 8 did 500 in 2022, and a PSA 7 did 600. So obviously, 7 was first one to market, 8 is a significant discount relatively, and then this didn't seem to be a bad price. A good discount from an 8, but seems fair, and presumably no real loss of price, and at least from what we can see there. SGC 4-5 here of Baggio from the Calcio Flash set, a nice rookie of his, or at least, in my opinion, probably the second best. The Forza goal's pretty easily number one, but after that you can kind of debate which one's which. The Calciatore is a bit more common, and the panel's an interesting one, I would say, but probably not preferred since most people don't like panels. So for me, I like this one. 4-5, not a great grade, but not terrible either. Goes for 168, which feels pretty light if you're a Baggio guy. That wouldn't seem to be all too bad of an ad. We have a Massapus here from 62 Lampo Calcio. Always love this set. He doesn't seem to be quite in love with this set. Seems pretty down, but nonetheless, that gets 170 there for a pop one of 2, 1 higher. This seemed like a pretty decent price. I don't really follow the 2022 sticker Messi prices, but a PSA 10 going for 175 feels pretty good. Obviously not going to be easy to grade, but at the same time, I mean, these are plentiful. So Rodrigo out of 10 Road to the World Cup from Donruss/Optic goes for 174 there. PSA Pop 104. Jude Bellingham refractor for 174. We have a Merlin Shooting Stars Dennis Bergkamp PSA 8 that goes for 174. This was a pretty huge discount from what I can find. So that is Hugo Sanchez. This is Dennis Bergkamp. So yeah, whenever this last sold, I did think it was pretty high. I'm not going to lie. I remember seeing it and being like, that's impressive. But this was a PSA 8 that sold. Apparently sold. I mean, you could question it. It might have sold and then just dropped a lot, or it might have gotten pushed. Who knows? Nonetheless, I was comparing backwards, and yeah, as you can see, I mean, 336, 408, so it looked like a pretty decent increase from that point. But then we saw another one sell best offer on eBay for 400, and then this one goes for 174, which is a huge discount. Last PSA 7 sold for around this price, so from what I can tell, seems like a good buy if you're in that market. Treble Tim Weah Gold, nice little American contingent in here, goes for 180 there. PSA 8. This Dennis Bergkamp goes for 180 from his second year. PSA 5 Auto 10, probably the type of card where you don't even want the card grade on there, to be honest. Just take the Auto 10 and go on with it. Pretty nice looking though. I will say I prefer the one with him in the soccer ball from the 66-67 year, but to each their own. Beckenbauer autos, as most people probably know, fairly common, so, they don't get a huge premium, but I do like them if you're a, German collector or a vintage great collector. There's not many situations where you can get on-card autos fairly easily, so, it's kind of nice that some of the German guys allow us to do that, I guess. This was interesting. CSG or CG, changing their name on me, so it mixes me all up. But basically the same, actually the exact same price as PSA 4, so that was interesting to see. I like the colors on this. I don't know if that's just the scan or the slab, but the colors look better on this one. Interesting to see. Typically in my head, I would have assumed that there would be more discount than just one grade, but, cool to see that they're fairly similar. Above that, some vintage odd and ends, maybe pre-modern. I don't know what you consider an 85 Maradona as, but we have a 57 Di Stefano here in a 1.5, goes for 192. Obviously not easy with the Pop 1 of 1 just too higher. The Calcio Flash Maradona, I would be interested what people think between that and the Baggio down here. I know Baggio isn't as big of a name, but obviously rookie year means a lot more. Of course, 2.5 grades lower, so it's not apples to apples. But I do find it interesting that the Maradona stuff seems to have taken a step up while the Baggio stuff has taken a step down. Personally, I'm kind of jealous because I would want to collect more Maradona in the 80s, and I do try to at times. But with him taking that step up, it makes me wonder a little bit more if I should go for someone else like a Baggio. At the end of the day, I have probably and hopefully enough time to go for both, you would think, but yeah, Pop 1 of 2, none graded higher. Not that they're as graded as the Baggios, of course. We have a Pele Flash to Football. Always love the look of this one. This is a PSA 1 miscut going for 200, so if you want to get in on the lowest of low end in terms of grades, that would be a good price point. The Saka out of 75, PSA 10 Blue Ice goes for 200 here. Don't really have much to add. There was a comment about that either last week or a couple weeks ago about how I don't talk, too much about certain cards, and this is the style of card that I don't really follow too much. Once we get to the 2020s and beyond, unless I'm looking up the price for it, I really don't have too much to say because I'm not into the weeds, to be honest. I mean, this isn't a rookie Saka. Obviously, he's having quite a moment lately, and he's been a pretty good staple for Arsenal, but that isn't to say that I have a good gauge on what his cards do and each parallel in particular, because there's just a lot to follow, to be honest. Pele Calciatore Velita back, PSA 5 goes for 204 there. We have another Massapust here. This one, a little more happy. This is the EDI set in a PSA 4, which is a pretty good grade. Pop 1 of 1 and higher goes for 210. Kaluna from 61 here, PSA 1. This is a set that also has a rookie Eusebio that recently went for crazy numbers. Kaluna, a step down in terms of Portuguese legacy, but still a very notable player. That goes for 210 there, and a Pop 1 of 1 and higher. R9 second year PSA 8 for 216. This was what I was alluding to earlier with other 54 selling. This was the Jalma Santos PSA 2 that went for 216. There was a PSA 1 that went either last week or the week before for 130-ish. So, a little bit of a discount maybe if you grade adjust it, but ultimately seems like a fair price. Definitely, I'm biased. I got the Garrincha lately on eBay, which I was very excited about. So I was thinking about adding some of the other players, but ultimately didn't really feel like taking the dive here. Not that I blame whoever's going after it. I think it is a pretty good looking set in terms of the photography and the black and white. I like it. 2013 Icons Messi, another one here, goes for $222 and a PSA 10. This is well, it says 1998. I don't know. This might have been something that people were talking about in Discord of it being later than 98. I'm not too sure, to be honest. So Shevchenko rookies are always sort of interesting because it seems like more and more are being found all the time. So I just wouldn't trust the rookie designation unless you really, really know what you're doing. If anyone has anything to add, feel free, but I believe I saw something in the Discord around this, but I could be wrong. When I say the Discord, I'm referencing the Vintage Discord. There's a link down below. Would highly recommend it. There's also a US M&T link, but that literally was just meant for US soccer cards, and there's not a ton of activity. So if you're not interested, please do not join. Nonetheless, we have a Jude Bellingham refractor auto here from 2021 going for $240. Aqua refractor, by the way. Above that, that's how you know that Jude stuff is doing A-okay when a second-year Match Attax color is going for $240, obviously out of 25, but orange isn't a fan favorite. 2015 Messi PSA 10 here for $250, and a PSA 10 2017 Mbappe for $240. Feels like a pretty strong price for a WCCF card, but I honestly haven't seen this before, I don't think. Again, not that I delve too deep into Mbappe second and third year stuff, but interesting to see. We have a Van Nistelrooy from 97 that goes for $250. That sort of struck me as a pretty good sale, so I decided to look it up. And relatively, it seems pretty fair. I guess last 7 went for $126. So this might be a Bergkamp situation where this is really high, and if another one comes out, I don't know if it would do that same price. But yeah, feels pretty strong. I did look up the next one, which is this Vinny PSA 10 that went for $260. For this card, the other ones that we see sell, there's sort of this future stars mixed in here, which we're not going to look at. But last sale was $325 from what I can see. We also have some prior sales for $400, $500, $600 as you go down. Has held up okay, I guess, relatively to other things, but hasn't done anything too crazy considering how Vinny's sort of, playing lately and what position he holds in the world at the moment. 68 FHER Pele PSA 2 goes for $264. Pretty decent price for a PSA 2. Looks to be a rarer version of an FHER. Typically, they're, decently plentiful from what I find, or, I see them a good bit and in decent grade. This one's a pop 1 of 3, just one higher, so that's notable. 67 Crack, this is a set that people enjoy a lot, looks really good, has that card feel, because it is a card, and this one goes for $264, so looked up that one, and this had sold prior, so last PSA 1 went for $200, which means that this is a pretty decent price. Last SGC one, was that the same one or no? Yeah, that was this. No, that was a different one. Okay. So last SGC one that was this exact copy went last year for $186. So, yeah, 186 to 264. You take home a little bit there after the rake and doing A-okay. So 58 Verlog here. Not the Crying Pele, but a Crying Pele. Goes for $264 in a PSA 3. We have a Libinati here from 1920s Zani that goes for $276 SGC4. Don't really have much to add there. I am not more than familiar with the scribbled initials that are Erling Haaland here in 2022 Prism Auto. Goes for $276 with an auto 10 PSA 9 on the card. This Mirar Sprint PSA 4 Pele from 60-61 goes for $288. Pretty nice looking one there. Not your typical type of card, but I always like whenever they have, really stunning colors and a nice dark background. Definitely feels like it pops with the orange border too. Looks really good. Pop 1 of 5, 7 higher. 65 Calciatore with the Velita back. Of course, you see these a decent bit, but the Velita back being a bit more rare. Pop 1 of 5, 3 higher goes for $300. Another Verlag Pele 2.5 goes for $300 from the 1958 set. This is a technical rookie Pele, but it's a matchbook, which is interesting, authentic grade as well. Obviously, you got Pele down there, and you can go ahead and light up your matches if you'd like on the bottom of that authentic slab, but interesting to see. We have this 96 Panini David Beckham PSA 9 that goes for $312. Pretty decent price. We saw one of these go recently. I didn't honestly care enough to look and see if this was a relist or not. But pretty strong prices for an early David Beckham. 59 Heinerle Pele goes for $312. This felt pretty low, and I looked it up, and it was. There were some sales in the past. I mean, this one for $500, that's an eye appeal sticker though, so you have to take that into account. Last one was $396, and this one's $312. I'd say the $312 one looks a little more beat up than the $396, which we'll see here. I mean, the corners are obviously beaten. I mean, it's a PSA 2. This one, I would say, is a bit more beaten. Basically, every corner's beaten without a shadow of a doubt. So, interesting to see. But I talk about pre-boom pricing sometimes, and this is one where, fairly close to pre-boom, I guess. I mean, when we're looking back in 2014 to 16, it's $150 to $200. As we get closer to 2020, 200, 250-ish. Of course, the High did have a bit more of a narrative back then, but, generally speaking, being near pre-boom pricing is pretty rare, especially for, early Pele. 2018 Treble Christian Pulisic Blue PSA 10 goes for $336. Again, happy to see an American on here. As far as treble, though, not really my thing. As I've mentioned before, I'd rather have the Weah and, another $150 or whatever it was, if I was choosing. I guess, PSA 10 premium is what it is, but, I don't know. I mean, Pulisic, non-rookie, Dortmund kit, doesn't really quite do it for me in third year, but obviously treble set has its own followers at this point. Pop 1 of 1, so that plays a factor, I'd imagine. 95, 96, another second year R9 goes for $360 here. Not a crazy premium over the 8 we saw earlier, which is interesting. Pop 1 of 5, none higher. BVG 7 Velita back Pele goes for $360. This was graded post fakes being graded BGS, which is interesting. I haven't really seen anything on early Pele fakes, so to be honest, I don't really have any input there, but just feels like a relatively low price, at least compared to the PSA 5 we saw earlier. Speaking of PSA 5 Peles, we have a 1970 World Cup here going for $396. These have had sort of a little bit of stink around them, with potential reprints coming out. More so fakes than reprints, but nonetheless, $400 for one of the most iconic stickers in the hobby, I would say. Paolo Rossi, feels like we see him a good bit in these auctions and almost always pulls a decent price here. PSA 6 gets $408. This Bebeto felt super high. I looked it up because I had that feeling. And basically, I mean, compared backwards, it sort of makes sense. I mean, a PSA 6 did 128 or 126, and then a SGC 7 did 312. So a PSA 7 doing 420 isn't anything crazy. But again, when we go pre-boom, 2019, there was an SGC 4 that went for $14, and that's pretty crazy. Even more recent, this PSA 3 went for $27, and I know PSA 3 and PSA 7 are worlds apart, but they should still be somewhat comparable, and a 20x on that is pretty crazy, I would say, especially when Romario in this set has dropped a lot. You could get a pretty good grade Romario for $420. So, I understand Bebeto probably has some, niche collectors and people that want to go after the high grade, but if that type of price is being paid, there will be more that come out, I would say. We've just sort of seen that with Romario, and I'd imagine the same holds true there. We have a 56 Graficas Brazil here of Copa. PSA 4 goes for $432. I looked this one up, and apparently not one you see all too often. There's a 58 right here for $62. There's a 58 here for $76. Again, pre-boom pricing, though. We got one all the way back in 2017, and luckily enough, this... is it 2.5? I think it's 2.5. Yeah, this went for $15, and now a PSA 4 goes for $430. So, again, crazy premium on the rare issues that don't come up too often. There has been just almost no regard for pre-boom pricing. Like, you can do whatever you want almost, and I find that interesting. I understand it, but I would be, personally, I'm not a Copa guy. I get it, but this would be, it would make me feel a little hesitant going after it, even if I was a Copa guy, just seeing that crazy premium. Of course, collect how you want, do what you want. Who am I to judge? But, just throw my opinion out there on it. PSA 6, 1970 Pele, a little bit higher than the PSA 5, just a, $40 increase. That doesn't feel too bad. I guess this one's a bit more centered maybe than this one, so obviously that plays a factor. People love their centering, but I'd pay another $40 to up it a grade. 4.5 Baggioli here with the little point thing on the bottom here. It can also be cut off, so you could just have the Pele and the nice colors around it. This being a bit more rare, this goes for $456. I said I don't really know much about 2020 and beyond, but I do know that out of 99 purple breakaway doing 480 while the cracked ice that was blue did like 200 is pretty weird. Don't really have much to explain that. If anyone does, let me know. I find that very strange, though, personally. I'm not a big fan of the Pulsars or Breakaway, whatever you want to go with. Anywho. Moving on, the Thierry Henry Russian version of the Mejoros Equipos de Europa goes for $480 in a PSA 4. Looked up comps on this one. I thought it sold more often, but basically I could only find like 8 comps in total, and for PSA it was even less. But yeah, basically last one, this was I think a SGC3. Yeah, that did $240. That was almost a year ago. Basically, this hasn't sold in like a year. So PSA 4 does a good multiple over that. Last PSA 5 did $407 on a fixed price, so seems like a nice little tick up for that Russian Henry. Jude out of 250 PSA 10 goes for $500 here. I will say, I think out of 250 Jude rookies, doing $500 is a pretty good sign, I guess, for him. But pretty interesting in general. I'd be a little worried. I mean, I'm not rushing out to get Jude at this moment, but he does look like he's sort of taken the mantle as one of the best players, if not the best player in the world, so I can totally understand it. Meanwhile, right next to it, you have the true rookie sticker of Kylian Mbappe going for $504 in a PSA 9. I do like the sticker, but just generally with fake stickers, I feel like, I don't even want to say it. Never mind. 504 there. Much lower than it's been, and in my opinion, the true rookie for Mbappe. Obviously, if you're an Mbappe collector, it's probably not the most fun, but if you're someone that just wants to buy one Mbappe, that's probably the one I'd go after. Keep in mind, I don't own any of this. I probably own some random base cards of Mbappe here and there, but I own no big Mbappes. This one would be the one I'd like, though. PSA 5, Edis Calciatore Baresi goes for $504 there in a pop 1 of 3, none higher, so really nice grade on that one. Also, I love the colors, and in terms of the typical Calciatore that you see for Franco Baresi, I like the background as well. Pretty nice. Pretty typical price on this Messi rookie here in a PSA 8 goes for a little over $500. We have a Jude Gold Phenomenon from 2022 Prism that goes for $540. Dual auto here of, what is that, Henry and Bergkamp? Yeah. Wasn't familiar with the Bergkamp auto, but I can throw that into the old memory bank there. Yeah, this is another one that auctioned off. I was mentioning that earlier, PSA 6 for $576. These have dropped quite a bit. Some people are saying you can sort of see differences in terms of color on certain ones. At this point, if there is any reason for that, or if there are fakes, whatever it may be, it feels like there's so many graded that people are going to be almost at a loss for it. So, that's something to, I guess, consider. PSA 2 record of Pele goes for $588 there with just the single cut of him, no Garrincha. We have an Arthur Smith 1896 Godfrey Phillips. I basically pre-1900, the only thing that ever sticks out to me are the Bane shields, just because those are really cool. Beside that, though, this is like the one other item that, I guess it's a tobacco card, but that's the one that does stick out to me. I've seen this a few times in PWCC auctions. Looks really, really nice. Past sales on this one, we have an SGC 5.5 that went for $1,000. So comparatively to that, which was a year ago, a PSA 3 going for $630 feels like a pretty good price. And then prior to that, I mean, obviously back in the day it was a bit more. What I do find interesting on stuff like this, and just in general, is if I can't find any pre-boom sales, which I can't, the earliest sale on Card Ladders 2022, I typically assume that it wasn't a huge deal prior to that, at least price-wise. Now, keep in mind, I guess back in the day before 2020, it took a lot less money to be a big deal or notable within the hobby. So I'm sure people were still chasing it. But to not see a price is always moderately concerning whenever I'm looking at stuff that I don't know too much about. If there's no sales prior to 2021, 2020, I am a bit more hesitant generally. PSA 3 Bremer Fakring Pele here goes for $630 in a pop 1 of 2.5 higher. PSA 8 Romario goes for $750. That's sort of what I was talking about there earlier with the Bebeto. It goes for $420 in a PSA 7. I mean, obviously double the price or nearly double the price, but Romario being that close is probably unfair. Romario, though, doesn't have tons of collectors, so I sort of understand, but at the same time, PSA 8 is a mega grade there, pop 1 of 9, just one higher, so really, really nice there. We have a silver matchups, Messi Ronaldo goes for $840. I looked this one up since we don't see it too often, and it's been trickling down a bit. So basically, starting off in 2022 at the bottom, it was 1,500-ish. Drops into the 12 to 1,100 range last year, and now is sort of down to the 8 to 900 range. Sort of keeps ticking down, and I'm interested where that seems to find a bottom, or when it does. I do believe that there's sort of a split between Ronaldo and Messi collectors also. just in general with the Messi World Cup, I feel like a lot of the Ronaldo collectors probably don't like Messi as much because of that, and a lot of the Messi collectors probably think that they're way better than Ronaldo now. And so it used to be like, oh, these are our two GOATs, and now it's, one side taking the narrative of saying, no, this is the guy, and the other one being like, no, this is the guy. So it feels a lot more combative than it was before, and maybe that plays a factor. PSA 9 here goes for a little under $1,000, which is pretty typical, especially of these white Mega Cracks from 2004. Next, we have a Mario Kempes rookie from 1974. This is the disc, and in a PSA 4 goes for $930. Looked up recent comps, and it's been going down a good bit, I would say. But, relatively in line, I would say, with also other things. I mean, in 2022 being, what was that, $2,500, and now being $900, going down like 60%. I mean, sort of in line, but this is pretty rare, as you can see, especially in this high of a grade, PSA 4. I want to see if these are all the same cert. So that ends in 18, this one ends in 18, and this one ends in 18. So yeah, just keeps on keeping on. I guess we'll see if it gets resold again, but that's sort of the thing, I guess, when the same copy gets resold again and again and again, and basically every year someone goes to market and sells it again. Obviously, it's not really reaching the home of its end collector, and that's going to be a problem if that keeps happening. I mean, it just sort of makes sense. We have an out of 325 SP Authentic Cristiano Ronaldo that goes for $1,050 here. Pretty nice looking with the red parallel plus the red kit. I like that quite a bit. This goes for $1,000, pop one of 14.5 higher. I think it's a pretty interesting comparison with the one above it. That is a PSA 10 2017 Chrome Blue that goes for $1,170. I'd be interested what you guys think between these two. Personally, I know I like to go against the grain a bit, and I probably would here. I think that the SP Authentic set, at least from what I understand, is actually a 2003-2004 set. If we're going by year of release or the release calendar and how they typically do it, I think it was released in 2004, but it's a 2003-2004 season. No matter the case, I mean, an early career parallel, really hard to find for Ronaldo. This Upper Deck set, or I guess Upper Deck does SP Authentic, you get the idea. Anywho, I think it looks nice. I mean, the red on red, obviously it's not chrome, it's not what people truly desire, but, people talk about the Real Madrid, and I like the Real Madrid kits as well, but I do, have some affinity for the Manchester kits too, especially the old stuff. So personally, I'd probably go with the red out of 325, but I'd be interested what people think. Messi Topps Chrome Gold from 22-23 with the auto goes for $1,300 there. PSA 9. We have a Cristiano Ronaldo here with Sop Richardson. No clue on that one, but yeah, nonetheless, I mean, you're there for the Ronaldo auto. The early career Ronaldo autos were very messy. I don't know if he must have just cleaned it up as he went on, but yeah, I mean, that's all over the place. Would be interested what that grades in terms of an auto being off sticker basically everywhere, but it is an early career auto, so, I get the appeal in that. Out of 109, I don't know the significance of that, to be honest, but pulls a good number at $1,400. This was a pretty good price. This is Zlatan 2001-2002 Panini Foot, the FIFA EA Sports 11. People like this one because obviously the FIFA nod and being an early career Zlatan, that's going to be a fan favorite. So pop one of 3, none higher. Looked at sales comps on this one, and in a PSA 9, there aren't many, but basically this one goes for $1,400 as we mentioned before. Last PSA 9 did $990, so that's a nice little 40% increase over the last year, at least in that grade, assuming that this doesn't get relisted, which wouldn't imagine, but you never know. Seems like a pretty good sale. I mean, PSA 5s were going for $200, PSA 6 was going for $200, so PSA 9 pulling, almost a grand and a half isn't too bad at all. This was a really interesting one. Again, I've said it before, I'm not really all that knowledgeable. I guess the further back we go, the less knowledgeable I get, but I'm working on it. But English stuff, I'm probably always going to be a bit behind on because there's so many guys that are so deep into that. So I don't really want to tread in those waters, if I'm being honest. Nonetheless, I know a nice looking card when I see one. Granted, this is a postcard, not a typical card, but this is a 1905 Bloomer. Looks really, really good. It's got his caps down here for England and sort of, dates them on the bottom, and just looks really, really good, I would say. Interestingly enough, I guess it actually was used as a postcard. You got an address here, you got some messaging as well, so if you want to dig into that, that's pretty interesting. I don't know if you want to read their personal whereabouts, you can go ahead and do that now, but yeah, I think it looks really, really good. Unsure on if that's a fair price or anything. I mean, I tried to look it up, but basically couldn't find any comps. We then have a pair of Mundo Deportivo PSA 7s here, so one goes for $1,900, the one above it goes for $1,920. I guess $30 apart, but essentially the same price there. Again, I don't know how many times I can talk about it. At this point, we basically sort of have an idea in terms of where their pricing is, in terms of if it'll stay there or not. If this supply keeps hitting, I would presume not, but there was a span where we didn't see them for a long while, and I was sort of wondering if maybe the amount coming to market had dried up, but seems to have gone right back to it. Then we have a Nobility Pele auto that goes for $2K. I didn't end up looking this one up because I'm pretty sure we've looked up one like this lately, but $2,000 for a pretty decent set of a on-card auto Pele. That makes sense at $2K. 9.5 as well. Would presume that was graded back at the time of actually being pulled. Back then, people graded with BGS. I know, crazy to think about, huh? Worlds apart from where we are now. 2009, Abril Gol and Neymar. This felt like a pretty strong price, and looked it up, and seems to be the case. If we look here, basically the last PSA 8 sold on PWCC last year for $12.60, and this one goes for $19.50. Of course, that $12.60 sale was quite far down from the earlier in February sale at $2,700, and this comp is somewhere in the middle of those two. So might be a little bit of a tick up. Guess we'll have to see if that sticks. I know I talked about recently there was like a BGS 7.5 copy on eBay that sold for so cheap, like maybe a few $100. It looked worse than a 7.5 to be fair, but if we're just talking holders, I mean, that's a huge premium on that PSA 8, which probably is fair. A 72 Falcao and a PSA 3 goes for $2,400. Another scenario kind of like the Kempes, where this one was bought last year on PWCC and then sold this year and was at $3,700, now $2,400. So again, if it's not finding the home that it's meant to be in, it's probably going to go down again if it's sold 8 months later. PSA 6 Ronaldo Mega Cracks goes for $25.20, a pretty fair price, I would say there. Don't like how it floats around in the holder like that, but I guess what are you gonna do? We have a 2019 Erling Haaland. This is the Blue-Red Fusion in a PSA 10 that goes for $28.80, pop 1 of 10 in that grade. Not too familiar on what the estimated print run on this is, but good premium being placed on it given the price point there at nearly $3K. People typically don't seem to like the finest items as much. Personally, I like finest. I especially like the prize footballers. I mean, the text in the background's a little, I guess maybe it could throw you off, but I like the borders a lot, and I like the Salzburg kit as well. I think that adds something. PSA 7 Messi goes for $38.40 of the 71 bis right here, which again seems like a pretty fair price. You could compare it if you wanted with the 2022 sticker auto from Prism in a PSA 10 going for $4,200. I mean, definitely a strong price. There is no doubt about that. In terms of, I find it pretty interesting. I mean, obviously people are going to desire it. This, from what I would imagine, this is definitely more than the 2014 Prism Auto. I didn't look that up, but just speaking off of generally what I've seen, I would imagine that that's the case. Interesting. I mean, at least the autos kind of sets it apart. When it comes to like base cards, it's so hard to compare 2014 and 2018 or 2014 and 2022 because there's so many more parallels now. But at least with autos, you would imagine it's generally the same. I would imagine there's also more this year than there was in 2014, but probably not by a crazy amount. I mean, they're not having Messi sign too much, or else he might not even sign, and that might be a worry. 2017 Blue Mbappe Chrome. I was interested what this did, and it's been up from the I guess maybe potential low of 5,100. That happened towards the end of last year, so there was a span of like 3 sales there at 51 to 5K, and now we see a 57 and a 58, both a day apart. And then we'll go up to the top 3. It was pretty hard to get in the top 3 this week. I mean, there were some big dongs. I would say, probably 5 to 10 other cards that would be in the top echelon any other week, but this week is a big one. So we have a PSA 10 Kaboom Kylian Mbappe from 2018. I can't remember the last time I've seen this on PWCC auction. If we go look at comps, basically crazy price here. I don't know why that is. I mean, part of it could be this card hasn't sold in 4 months in this grade, but the prior comps were 5K, 6,600, 5,700, 65, 7K. I would imagine that this Propstein one is the same one going over and over. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, okay, just checking. But yeah, it went 3 times. So it started at 7, presumably shilled, and eventually, I would imagine, sold at 57, unless Propstein just got tired of it and sent it back. Is this the same? Yeah, that's the same one back there. So I mean, you see it listed 4 times in the span of a few months. Yeah, so I mean, the 7K seemed to have been sort of a bottom falling out at that point. They were around 7 to 8, and then they went down to 5. This one goes right back up to 7-ish, almost 8. I find that interesting, obviously. Yeah, I mean, pretty good year. Ultimately, the only thing that's really going to change Mbappe's career trajectory and what people think in this moment is if he wins the Champions League or gets transferred to Real Madrid. Obviously, the Madrid stuff's boiling up, and that's basically going to be the case, or at least you'd think. That's what we thought most of the years before this as well. This one was interesting. 2023 Road to the Euro, Erling Haaland and Ronaldo. Got to have the Road 2 series, so that way you can profit off of the players that didn't make it to the Euro, but alternatively have a set that isn't as desired as other things. So interesting there. This one, Superfractor, 1 of 1, of course, with Erling Haaland. Cristiano Ronaldo goes for 11,000. Very good price, but not the crazy prices that used to be paid back in the day. I remember when the first Erling Haaland, Messi, Ronaldo triple auto came out in a 1 of 1, it was like 100,000 plus. So it seemed like people have cooled, which is probably good. In my opinion, I mean, I get it's a 1 of 1, but the card looks disgusting, and they really have no meaning on the card together other than that they're, both potentially great players. I mean, one of them is, the other one could be, and, I get it, but Haaland's not even playing in this Euro, so it's strange. But if you can print a 1 of 1 and get a lot of money off of it and have someone chase something, I guess it's cool. As we can see, someone thought it was, and, the people bidding against him did too. And then we end with a pretty cool Erling Haaland in the sense that, I mean, obviously it's a PSA 10 Chrome Gold, which is, I guess, basically the rookie of Haaland at this point. I was always, fighting it, but, I mean, I'm just one guy. It's just my opinion. But I think the Topps Finest is cooler, but the Chrome has seemed to have been what people have settled on. This is a jersey number, though, number 17. Apparently, I didn't look at the back, but I'll take PWCC's word for it. Gets 15K. I thought that would get some sort of premium. Really doesn't. Maybe that's because people aren't going to remember him as number 17, and ultimately that plays some sort of a role. I don't know. But the last PSA 9 sold for 6K. Typically, you do like a 3x premium from a 9 to 10, so you would imagine like 18, 20. Compared to the last sale, the 9.5 did 9.1 thousand from SGC, which is a pretty good SGC sale right there, I would say. If a 9.5's doing, 66% of a PSA 10, that's not bad. And then before that, I mean, it's more of the same. PSA 10 for 15K, PSA 10 for 16, and then PSA 10s for, 25 back here, depending on what we see. So ultimately, didn't seem like really any premium placed on the jersey number, which I found interesting. Maybe that means if a non-jersey number came up, they would dip even lower. I mean, Haaland's had a great 2 years, but ultimately people priced him as the best player ever, and he hasn't. I mean, he's still been an amazing player, but hasn't won a Ballon d'Or yet, and I guess still hunting the first. So that's it as far as this auction goes. Of course, we'll take a small peek at next week's and see what we got going on. From what I remember, next week was a pretty heavy hitter as well, top to bottom, just lots of goodies. I don't think it was as top heavy, but more so throughout the auction. It was pretty packed. We have a PSA 85 El Mundo Deportivo, again, crazy grade. Very recently graded too. A lot of the high grades have been recently graded, which is interesting. PSA 9 Mega Cracks Ronaldo, already at 4K. We have a blue Mbappe at 1300. We have this EDI Pele in a 4.5, really high grade. I think we've seen this sell before, but I guess we'll see it go again. Gold Ronaldo from 2017 Chrome. Messi PSA 10 rookie. We have a PSA 8 Jared Muller, which is just a crazy grade as well. This PSA 1 Cruyff, this PSA 5 Zidane, a Fritz Walter again, and a 1.5, PSA 6 George Best, a PSA 7 Maradona. I can't go through it all, but as you can see, I mean, 8.5 Messi, just so many crazy cards. Some good grade Vanderhoots, an 8 and a 7, a blue Pulsar Ronaldo. I don't know what it is, but apparently everyone decided that they're listing up their big cards next week. So PSA 4 Sindelar, a Vecchi Garincha, Tim Howard, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so another good week next week. I'm pretty excited, and hopefully you are too. Looking forward to it. Of course, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Again, if you did, make sure to leave a like. Would appreciate it greatly. If you want to see more videos like this, as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. And of course, share your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear it. If you thought anything sold high, low, anything you picked up, would love to see it down below. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.